All right, well, good morning, everyone. I'm Cody Meyer, Land Use Transportation Planner from the Department of Land Conservation and Development. Here, Tara Weidner's online. I think I saw her pop in, and she's going to give the second half of this and get into a little bit more of the weeds that I think you guys will be interested in. So, as Chris said, we are a DLCD. We have Metropolitan greenhouse gas reduction targets in Division 44 for the metropolitan areas of the state. They are for household travel. I think you all probably know this because you've heard this spiel a couple times. Ray knows it. Right now. We have these rules. We've had them since 2011. We were directed by the legislature to adopt them. And we did in 2011. We've reviewed the targets. I'll talk about the process there a couple times. And we have amended them twice. So in 2017, we did pretty significant technical amendments, going and saying like, hey, we have a statewide transportation strategy now. The way they set the targets originally was just to get a bunch of smart people in a room and say, what do you think? What levels of EV? What level of pricing? Like, let's make assumptions and let's just like vote on what the future looks like. So that's a pretty inefficient way to do it, and also very cost intensive for us to panel people and take their time. But we also said, hey, the state has a plan now. It's the statewide transportation strategy, and it makes assumptions about the future around all those variables, right? Like, what does the future have to look like to meet our goals in electrification, roadway pricing, all these things. So what we did in 2017 was we said, okay, we're not going to make our own assumptions as an agency anymore. Thank you very much. Can advance to slide 3 or 4 probably. So yeah, right here we could stop. So in 2017 we made these amendments. We're hitched to the STS now. We're basically like, we have a plan. We're going to work the plans of the state. So ODOT and other agencies are working these state-led actions. DLCD through our targets is working with the local governments to do their half of the bargain. So we got to do everything. It's got to be from like local action all the way up to state and federal actions. That was the major technical change, also including updates for the new MPO areas. In 2020, we had climate-friendly and equitable communities. So we're responding to a directive from the governor. So we rolled in amendments to Division 44, but we really just said we're going to require it of the 2 next largest metropolitan areas outside of Portland. So now our 3 biggest metropolitan areas have to do scenario planning and identify a plan that would get them to the target. And so that was the major change there. So there wasn't really any technical changes, just more applicability to the rules. So next slide, please. You probably don't know this, but transportation sector is 35% of all greenhouse gas emissions in the state. Within that 35%, it's 50% is passenger cars, trucks, SUVs. So that's where our targets are focused, is that big brown circle, really trying to look at household travel in the metro areas. Next slide, Cody. Yeah.
Has the proportion of long haul delivery trucks and buses gone up in recent years?
I'm going to phone a Tara and see if she can answer that. Tara, are you there?
I also saw Garrett Kransky on too. So.
Okay, Garrett could probably answer that.
I'm pretty sure it has. I don't have any numbers at my fingertips, but that has been an area that hasn't been too small in the past, and it certainly has been a large growing sector.
But when we're looking at the data, we did see, Tara, that the gasoline sales is going down, but some of that diesel sales is going up in the state, kind of pointing to people buying big diesel trucks and driving them around for personal vehicle, and also Amazon and all this package delivery.
Yep.
Yeah, see Eric, you have your hand?
Yeah, and for the group, Eric Hovig, Statewide Policy and Planning Manager. ODOT. We are updating the freight plan right now, so we're looking at some of this data. Thor Morris, I'm assuming he's on the call here or in the room somewhere, but is actually looking at some of that. We are seeing generally, I don't want to speak for Thor, but some definite increases in the delivery side for sure. That has skyrocketed in a lot of different ways over the last number of years. will those trends continue? Those will be the long range questions that we'll be looking at in the freight plan. And then long haul trucking, again, trucking is still the predominant source of moving freight here in the state of Oregon. I think it's around 70% of the goods moved by truck in some way, shape, or form. So we are looking at those long range trends as well as we kind of move forward. But that's generally what we're seeing is some uptick, especially in the delivery side. Long haul seems to be maybe holding a little more steady, but it's so tied to economic conditions. There's a lot of ups and downs that are more impactful to moving freight than just supply and demand.
Thanks, Eric. And I apologize, I didn't do introductions at the beginning, just because I think there's a decent amount of folks online and also in here. But also, this is great discussion. Obviously, there's things to add from the participants. So yeah, feel free to raise your hand, or also if you have questions or comments in the chat, we'll also make note of those and can verbalize those as well. So yeah, don't hesitate to do that hand raising and also participate in the chat. And yeah, all my bosses are here. Sorry, go ahead.
Could you advance 2 slides? Just try to pick up some time here. Oh, thank you. Okay, so just kind of a framework for how we're thinking about, getting after greenhouse gas reduction targets at the local level. As I said, the state has a plan for all sectors, or a goal for all sectors to reduce by 2050. So that's that big circle on the left. The STS, what it does is say, like, okay, within that transportation sector, what are the things we need to do, and whose authority to implement those strategies are there? And so that's a very helpful thing to have, so we can kind of start working on it. So some of those things are the responsibility of local governments, actions that reduce vehicle miles traveled. So that's where our metropolitan greenhouse gas reduction targets fit into all this. They really say, okay, these are the things that are going to be the responsibility of local governments. All is needed to get to our goals as a state. And the levers that cities have to help reduce vehicle miles traveled are zoning reform, parking reform, active transportation infrastructure, parking, different pricing mechanisms at the local level, transit, whether it be a local transit agency or a regional transit agency, and then different transportation options programming. So next slide, please. All right, so this is the boring part of the presentation. Every 4 years, I have to produce a report for our commission that is really a transparency mechanism. So when the targets were first adopted, people were, concerned that this was going to be unachievable. What if these targets are too high and we can't make them? What if there's things that we're doing and makes this redundant? So the commission agreed that every 4 years they do a review of the target rules and decide if updates to the targets are warranted. So this is our 3rd time we've done this. The rules have been amended twice. So we found things to do before, and there's consultation is required because really we want to make sure the targets are working for the affected local governments. It's really kind of something you don't want the target to be unachievable. No one can ever get there, no matter what they do, or it's like too low and nobody has to do anything. It's not working. So next slide. Really the review factors, I didn't want to put them on the slide deck here. It's A through J, but basically it boils down to what are the things that the state is doing because locals can assume state actions. And then what are the things that local governments have been learning through scenario planning, different land use studies, some of the different population projections and things at the local level. And then clearly we have the STS now, so we want to kind of fold in any updates to the statewide transportation strategy progress. And that is a good pivot point to bring Tara into this conversation.
All right. I'm helping out Cody and the other state agencies in this target rules review. I think we often talk about it as the down payment for a continuation of that discussion quantitatively into our STS monitoring work. So that's something we're doing every 3 to 5 years. We had the original Statewide Transportation Strategy STS report came out in 2012 with that vision. And so we track our progress to that And we did that in 2015, 2018, 2022, and now we're working on something that will come out next year. So those are very different in terms of what the decisions are and how they're reported. So that's what this slide is kind of getting to. So as Cody has been mentioning, the key for the target rules, and I guess that should be plural, review is that, how is the rule working for everybody and do they need to change? Whereas when we go to STS monitoring, we're like, are we on track with the vision to get to our statewide greenhouse gas goals, which includes metropolitan areas, but also that broader goal. So different decisions are being made on that. They both look a little bit at both qualitative and quantitative. A target rule will look a lot at some, studies and policies that have happened in the interim, and overall progress on scenario planning and like the CFAC performance measures and work to meet those targets so we can start tracking that. That's a little less focus on the monitoring where we do have report cards, but that Metropolitan is one of a broader set of stuff, and we update the website progress. In fact, I'll put the link to the website if you don't already have that. And then quantitatively, so the target rule review is a lot of qualitative discussions and getting to that question, but it does look at the historic trends of how are we doing, particularly on the state-led side, because as vehicles and fuels and pricing may change, that might trigger a need to relook at this. So we are looking at historic trends and whether we're on track or off track to inform that decision of whether the targets need to change or not. Looking for that sweet spot where we're not, hitting it out of the park and we're not, so far behind that we can't catch up. And then when we can move to STS monitoring, we take that and we not only look at more of that historic trends, but we solidify that into an actual forecast, and we start to have a new line on our website with progress charts to that. And so that has forecasts of both our policies and programs and then some external forces, fuel price and population growth and some of those things. All right, next slide. So I'll just go through some of the local actions that we have, of the actions that will be covered in both of those studies, monitoring reports. So I'll start with local actions. Is there a question out there? I feel like I keep hearing something. Okay.
Not in the room.
Okay. So the first slide here is talking about the local actions, and those all really combine into tracking the VMT per capita, how much miles per person are we traveling. So this is what we have on the website on the left-hand side. And so the factors that are discussed here and are really, have been pulled into all that CFAC work to get scenario plans and translate that into performance measures. That's going to reflect a lot of actions on land use, our UGBs growing relative to population within the UGB and mixed-use neighborhoods on track with the CFA work, transit service, biking and walking, all those other modes, and then TDM programs and incentives, and also parking for workers and public areas. Next slide. On the state-led actions, one of the key things is our vehicle and fuel technology. The charts on the left are off that website that we'll be tracking to again. It all boils down to fuel efficiency, and that is affected by the age and size of vehicles. I think Amanda did a spoiler alert at the beginning talking about how some of these things are not, so these choices being made out there by the market are not helping us get to those goals. And then the EV adoption is really critical. And so some of those regulations and sales, and then maybe some of the federal changes here, and the issues will be discussed in these two reports. And then the supporting policies like rebates and EV chargers and such. And then once we know how fuel efficient they are, we have to look at the carbon intensity of both the fuel mix and the electricity. So those will be reviewed as well from our partners over at DEQ. Next slide. Pricing. So this is the other key state action, and one we may not have shared as much because everyone got real focused on vehicles and fuels, but this has always been in part of the STS. So I'll explain this chart a little bit here. What we have on the left two bars is sort of the cost per mile of driving in Oregon in 2020 and kind of the trends out to 2050 if we don't do much about it. What you see is at the bottom, you have the cost of energy, the fuel, and that's going to go down as we electrify. And then we have yellow is maintenance and repair, roughly about the same. And then the light blue is the taxation. And if we don't move to the road user charge, of which we can say we have now, but the trend was before that to we would be paying much less in those taxations that cover the cost of our roads. The STS vision is to fully cover the cost of that road. So that gets to that sustainable funding we've been fighting for in the legislature, of which we kind of have a, biennium reprieve here, but we'll need to go further. And then that's the light blue. And then we further add on top of that environmental and social costs, which are part of some things of that happen to raise the price of gas through some of those climate programs. The climate protection program and the clean fuel program have credits that they trade and such, and the cost of doing that raises the price of gas. The EQ at this point says it's about 9 cents in 2023, I think, or 4 for that carbon cost. And then the green is not a new cost at all, but a shifting of how we pay for vehicle insurance from a premiums to a per mile basis. So you face that cost with every mile. And then in addition to all those costs that we'll be reporting on a per mile basis, there's also only in Portland, the STS calls for the tolling and congestion pricing in congested conditions. Next slide. And so the other thing that's being reported on for state actions is system operations, which is sort of a term for the road growth and alternatives to that road growth. So we'll talk about how we're tracking there. That contributes to vehicle miles traveled as well, but alternatives to ITS program. And CFEC has weighed in on here with some new reviews on those programs. All right, last slide. There we are with questions. So I think we'll be talking about both of those studies over the next 6-9 months. So hope to keep you guys all engaged as we get new results.
Thanks, Sarah. So I just want to, for process, we are, whoa, Ray, you okay? The meeting. We have a draft that we're working on right now between ODOT, DLCD, DEQ, and ODO. Obviously, in the climate space right now, there's a lot of vetting that has to go on, but people talking about the programs, some of the stuff the federal government has done is being litigated by the state of Oregon. So some of the stuff we're talking about has got to go through pretty more rigorous review than would normally happen. So we're doing some internal reviews, but suffice to say, we're going to have a public report out at the end of November for the LCDC hearing in December 4th and 5th. That'll be here in Salem. And that'll be a hearing where the staff will make a recommendation, whether thumbs up or thumbs down, if we think the commission should pursue updates to the targets. And just want to put this out there. It's on the fact sheet. Even if they said, yes, we think we want to update the targets, that doesn't mean it's like a rulemaking right away. It's like, hey, come back and give us a plan, try to fit in the schedule with rulemakings and all this stuff. So nothing really burning on the horizon. It's just a decision they need to make in December. But we'll have that full report out. It's about a 50-page report right now. I think probably November 20th timeframe. It'll be on the commission's website. I will forward that to you all. With that, we are doing consultations and meetings and surveys. And so if there's any input, any of you want to give me for purposes of this report, I'm all ears. We're happy to answer questions too.